subject is intelligence-driven threat hunting for improving SOC maturity level. This training class has initially been provided by me about 2 years ago, and in the meantime we had a lot of opportunities to revise it through our customer engagement and also through a lot of R&D stuff that we've been working on, and all of those findings have moved into this class, and I hope that we have something that is beneficial to you. We have a total of 4 sessions, and in this session and the next, we will be primarily focusing on the intelligence part of intelligence-driven threat hunting. And some years before, when we actually started with threat hunting, we were not aware of the fact that this intelligence part is really so necessary. It started off with when we got a hunt engagement to conduct, we received some threat intelligence reports, and it was said to us, okay, now go out and hunt for these threat scenarios. And this is really something quite difficult if you haven't been prepared for threat hunting. So there are actually 2 things. You need to be prepared as an individual, and at the same time you need to prepare your organization for effective threat hunting. Otherwise you'll not be able to achieve the desired outcome. Now, as I said, we will be primarily focusing on the intelligence part, and from the 3rd session we will be then moving on to threat hunting. But we have some frameworks, some common frameworks, which are focusing on both parts, and I'm going to introduce those frameworks today. Let me just show you the agenda first of all. We're going to talk about the problem statement, which starts off actually with a business problem, but then we're going to translate this into a technical problem. So the SOC findings and SOC organizations as a part of the cause of the problem, we're going to focus on that. We'll also discuss the SIEM use case problem, and then also as a follow-up to let me say a lot of false positive alerting through the SIEM, the incident response challenges that really become quite overburden of of incident response teams. So this is the part where we will cover the current SOC working model, and then in the next section we're going to give an outlook into a modern future. Something that is actually it should have been due from long. In some areas from the US, you guys are ahead of us. We in Central Europe are very often lagging behind. But one of the most important things when you define your cyber defense strategy is knowing yourself and knowing your enemy. This is really very, very important. Unless you don't spend a considerable amount of time with this, you're not going to be able to defend your environment adequately. Knowing yourself and your enemy is actually modeled by help of attack graphs and attack trees. So attack graphs, this is something that we are going to use for knowing the enemy, and attack trees we're going to use for modeling ourselves, so our assets, our systems, etc. And for being able to develop cyber threat models, we actually need to consume threat intelligence. And we're going to talk about the 4 levels of threat intelligence here. The most common one, which is known as technical threat intelligence, that is based on indicators of compromise. This is actually the one which is mostly thought of when we talk about threat intelligence. But the threat intelligence is much more than just indicators of compromise. And we're going to learn about that. And as I said, this is taken as input for developing the models. And then finally for today is the last section, state-of-the-art technology, frameworks, and methodologies. So this is covering various frameworks and models and methodologies which help us in dealing with big telemetry data. So when you're collecting telemetry data, that's the security data of your environment, you can think of it like really a big mountain, and you first need to define models and give it some scientific rigor in defining some semantics, some taxonomy, and also ontology on top of it, in order to being able to structure your data in a way that you can really analyze it in a meaningful way. And this is what these models are helping us, starting off with the SAN 6-step incident response, the diamond model of intrusion analysis. So this model, or both models actually, cover the intelligence and the follow-up operations part. So we not limit ourselves to threat hunting, because we will talk in general often about security analysis, which can also be an incident response analyst. It can also be a threat hunting analyst, and we will then also talk about the differences. Yeah, the MITRE ATT&CK framework, and we say here phase ordered kill chain. I will mention more about this term later. We also talk about Tiber EU, which is a framework originally derived from CBEST, from the Bank of England, and then adopted by the European Central Bank. That is actually a framework which is which has two parts. So the first part is the threat modeling, the threat intelligence and threat modeling part, and the second part is a red testing part. So a threat intelligence provider creates threat models and provides those threat models to a red testing provider, who is then going to do security validation. He's going to do the red testing in order to help SOC organizations to improve their security posture, improve their detection and response capabilities. But the nice thing about this framework is that the first part, the modeling part, can also be taken as input for follow-up threat hunting engagements. And it can also be taken as input for inferring SIEM use cases once you have defined your models, which is much more effective than the way SIEM use cases have been developed today. Structured threat information expression, which we know under the term STIX. This is also something important we will have to discuss about. It's an expression language that we are going to use in order to provide machine code for these models, for implementing these models. And then finally, intelligence preparation of the cyber environment, which gives us a lot of interesting clues on how to get ourselves prepared for effective cyber defense. Yeah, problem statement. So this is probably something which is already known to you. The cost of data breach report is annually published by IBM Security and the Ponemon Institute, and I'm constantly observing mainly two KPIs. So the mean time to identify and the mean time to contain. These are actually very important factors. Last year, they translated to 207 days for identification and 70 days for containment. So with containment, they mean the complete recovery from a large breach. These 207 days means that it takes 207 days for a SOC organization to identify the breach. And this is really the result of poor SOC outcome. And it also means that SOC organizations are really part of the cause of the problem, and it means we have to address this. And for addressing this, there are two most important things. So one of them is the incident preparation, which needs much more consideration. And then it's also the security operations. So by security operations, we mean the detection and the response capabilities. And this also includes threat hunting. So if we take a look at the SIEM use case problem, today you have SIEM, so SOC organizations do have SIEM platforms in their environment, and those platforms are generating a lot of alarms. Many alarms are really false positive alarms. And we have seen SOC organizations who are nearly every incident is a false positive alarm. And those organizations are not really small customers. They are really large organizations, large managed SOC providers, where you would actually not expect this. But that's a common thing in our region here, I would say Central Europe. And even the SIEM use case developers have developed hundreds of use cases over the last couple of years. Really a lot of detection capabilities, but there we really need to improve a lot. And there are follow-up challenges, because once incidents are alerted within SIEM platforms, someone needs to follow up on them. And this is the duty of incident responders. So level 1, level 2 incident responders for the initial triage. But later, if a true positive incident is identified, then it goes on with level 3 incident response, and also we have customers who take threat hunters as a helping hand in order to have a better understanding of the whole threat scenario. One of the I would say observations that we have made is that SOC organizations are moving here to containment, eradication, and recovery very quickly, and this is actually this is understandable, because if they have to follow up on so many false positive alarms, I mean, at the beginning they don't know that these are false positive alarms. They turn out to be false positives later. But if they have to follow up on so many incidents, of course they don't have enough time for this part, which is actually it should be their main part, the analysis. Yeah, having enough time for analyzing the threats. And this is true for the intelligence part as well as the threat hunting part, because first of all, the analyst should be aware of what are the methodologies that are applied by relevant threat actors, what are the tool set that they are using, how can I detect this in my environment? These kind of questions, this is the main focus that need to be where the analysts should be focused on. But today they are very often just doing trivial stuff, which is kind of suboptimal. Now, outlook into a modern future. This is probably something that you have seen many times. So the Sun Tzu, that was a warrior in the 6th century before Christ, and his famous quote, I'm going to read this out loudly: if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the results of 100 battles. And this is really, really key. So we need to constantly keep this in our mind, that when we are preparing ourselves to defend our environment, our operational environment, against threats, we first need to have a good understanding of the environment itself. So there is a nice write-up published by the SAMS Institute in 2020. It's the Guide to Security Operations, and they're saying every organization and individual should consider their threat model details as a first step in building out their defense. And this is unfortunately the approach that has been missed by SOC organizations year before, when they started to introduce their defense measures. So very importantly, what are you protecting? Yeah. So with this we mean the crown jewels, yeah, the assets, the systems that you want to defend. So you need to model these, and then what are you protecting it from? So who are the relevant threat actors, and how are they able to attack our environment? So modeling the intelligence, modeling or modeling from the intelligence, their capabilities from recent attack campaigns, and also from group profile reports where these kind of threat actors are tracked over time. This is something that we will need as an input in order to create our threat models. So I'm gonna go here, and I have a very nice tool here. I'm really very much surprised how many features are in the meantime integrated with Teams here. So there is a very important term. I have put this here on the whiteboard: operation environment, and I will come to this term over and over again. So operation environment, that's your environment, whether that's your internet facing or your internal infrastructure. Yeah, it includes both, and this term is very important. I just wanted to mention this explicitly. Now going back to my slide deck. Okay, yeah, modeling yourself, your operational environment, is something that you can do by leveraging attack trees. Attack trees are not very new. So this is an extract. Sorry. Yeah, this is an extract from that SANS document. So they are referring to attack trees, which were originally introduced by Bruce Schneier in 1999. And he was giving some example here on physical security, but we can adopt this for the cyberspace in the same way. So you define your asset that you want to protect, your crown jewel, and then you define all the different paths which actually are able to attack this asset. Yeah. So the attack path, you're going to define all these attack paths. I also want to introduce another term here, or yeah, we can say term: critical functions. Yeah, critical functions and underlying key systems and services. So this is a term which was coined by the Cyber EU framework, and it actually, especially the critical functions term, is not only limited to technology. A critical function can also be any kind of exposure which is against your people, against your processes, or against your technology. So defining, first of all, your critical functions and then modeling these is key for getting this understanding of knowing yourself. And then as a next step, you can also start modeling your enemy by defining attack graphs. So this is the threat-centric approach, where you first of all have to determine relevant threat actors. So who are the relevant threat actors for your environment, the relevant threat scenarios. This is something where you can leverage threat intelligence portals. So for example, if you have a threat intelligence provider who has a portal where you can kind of pre-build, use these kind of functions. So identifying relevant threat actors for your region, for your industry, etc. Or you can also consume open source threat intelligence that would actually require more efforts for you to track your relevant threat actors and threat scenarios. And yeah, there's another excellent write-up which comes from the Homeland Security Systems Engineering and Development Institute. It was published in 2018. So it's named Cyber Threat Modeling, Survey Assessment, and Representative Framework. And it's basically that they're trying to say it doesn't matter whether you start with the threat-centric approach and then you map the threat-centric models to your system or asset-centric models, or you do it the other way around. That doesn't play a role. You can work either way. But the most important thing is that you need to juxtapose the various models to one another in order to understand how relevant threat actors would target your infrastructure, your operational environment. So how they have been doing this in their recent campaigns. Yeah, this is what you define in the models, and then through the juxtaposing is something that you have to determine. Now, the input for threat modeling comes from threat intelligence, and here I'm using the definition of a very nice write-up which comes from the Cyber EU framework. There is a report called Guidance for Target Threat Intelligence Report, and they have really a very nice definition of strategic, operational, and tactical threat intelligence. So the strategic intelligence is actually answering the questions who and why. So who is targeting us and why is he doing this? So what are his motivations? What are his motives and his goals? And then with operational intelligence, you answer the when, where, and how questions. This is primarily related to trend analysis, so to campaign and trend analysis. So with the previous and recent campaigns of threat actors, you try to understand trends and then be able to forecast for predictive defense measures. And the tactical intelligence, that is concerned with the how and what. So how is an attacker attacking us, and what is he attacking? So this how of the tactical intelligence is a bit different than the how of the operational intelligence, in that this is on operator level. So here with tactical intelligence, you learn the tactics, the techniques, and the procedures on an operator level in order to to have an understanding and then be able to find those behaviors. Yeah, we can also say behaviors here in your environment. Now, we can say that this kind of threat intelligence, this is sophisticated threat intelligence, and this is the threat intelligence that you need in order to develop your threat models. It is provided in the form of threat reports for human consumption only. So this is currently the biggest challenge with threat modeling, that you have to go through these kind of threat reports, which ideally are derived from incident response engagements. So there are many commercial threat intelligence providers available in the market that are gathering a lot of threat intelligence from their incident and breach response engagements, and they provide these kind of threat reports. So these threat reports give you real context. They give you the real big picture about the threat actor and the threat scenarios. But the challenge is that you have to really process this. So you have to understand, you have to extract the elements and objects within the threat reports. You have to relate them. You have to visualize them, and this is some work to do in order to draw the big picture. So in school, we have learned that an illustration says more than 1,000 words, and the goal here is to create those illustrations, those pictures, from tens or even hundreds of pages of human readable paper. So if you really think of, let's say, if you are part of the health industry, yeah, then you can think of at least, depending on the area where you are, where you're based, you can think of maybe 7, 8, 9 relevant threat actors that have relevant threat scenarios targeting your industry, which actually can translate into some hundreds of pages of threat reports that you have to go through in order to really understand the real large picture. But if you want to make it correctly, then of course you have to put these kind of efforts either with your own team or with help of external teams. So there are various ways in which customers are addressing this challenge. Now the last level of threat intelligence, that's the technical intelligence. Very often you see the technical intelligence consolidated with tactical intelligence, and even in that write-up from SANS, which I mentioned previously, they have actually consolidated it, and they're just naming it tactical intelligence, but more recent studies have actually differentiated here, because the technical intelligence, with these we actually mean the indicators of compromise, and the tactical level is a step ahead of it. So with this we mean IP addresses, hash values, domain names, etc. And we know that these have a very short lifetime. If we go back like 10 to 15 years, when we started to deploy the first SIEM solutions within customer environments, and then the first kind of threat intelligence came into the market, was introduced in the market, we started ingesting these kind of indicators into the SIEM, and got a lot of alarms, and we actually didn't know what these alarms mean. And there is a guy, his name is Ryan Stillians. I have mentioned him here. He has very nicely explained this in his blog posting. It's a blog posting from 2014, almost 10 years old, but it's still very, very accurate. He's describing the IOCs with a vapor trail of a fighting jet. So when you let's say, not the comparison in the physical world, if we look up into the sky and we see a lot of vapor trails, we will be knowing that there's some fighting jet or fighting jets moving around here. But we don't have any intelligence on what these fighting jets are, what are their capabilities, what can they really do, how fast can they fly, how high or how low can they fly, what kind of bombs they can really throw on us. You know, this kind of intelligence is really missing, and which means that it's very likely that we won't be able to fight those jets. And this doesn't mean that we are not going to consume technical intelligence. So technical intelligence is very important in order to get clues. So a common use case for technical intelligence is still ingesting this into the SIEM and trying to catch some bad activity through indicators. But then once you have these clues, you need to switch very, very quickly to the technical intelligence. Understand the actors behind the activity. It's not always the case that you're gonna be able to attribute this to some previous known and relevant threat actor. It can also happen that there are new threat actors in the environment with new techniques, but switching quickly to the tactical part is very, very important, because then once you have switched to that part, then you know what is the tradecraft that is being used by the threat actor. What is the malware, for example, that he's leveraging in order to attack us. Once you know what malware he's using, once you know what tools he's using, you might be able to better attribute this to some threat actor, and then get even the larger context, because you know then what TTPs are applied by those relevant threat actors, and this is how you can quickly switch to that technical intelligence and get to the findings in your environment. The technical intelligence is provided in the form of threat feeds by threat intelligence providers. Yeah, today very often through REST API integrations, or mostly through REST API integrations. I have put an example here of an open source project which comes from Alien Vault OTX. If I'm asked by customers, we want to get started with threat intelligence, so what should we do? It's definitely that you should get started with these kind of open source platforms. You can also start with a MISP instance, for example, in order to retrieve indicators. You can get started with a MITRE ATT&CK framework, because with every technique they are referring to a lot of open source threat reports. This is all stuff that you can get started with, but once you are getting more and more mature, you might want to switch to some commercial provider, because they will be providing more sophisticated kind of threat intelligence to you, especially the threat intel providers who are providing the breach and incident response engagements. They have very, very accurate and spot on threat intelligence that can be very, very helpful for you. So this model is very important. It's actually also summarizing the stuff that we have just discussed in this section. So let me just quickly, second. Yeah. So originally, this was also introduced by Ryan Stillions, and then it was continued by a professor of the University of Oslo. I can really hardly pronounce his name, but Audun Yozang has provided a very nice write-up. It's called Semantic Cyber Threat Modeling. I've put the link into here. It's a write-up from 2016, but still valid and giving very, very accurate scientific rigor for our field, for the cyber defense field. Now, within this model, starting off with the DML1 and 2, these are actually the atomic indicators and host and network artifacts, which is the technical threat intelligence that I just mentioned. And then DML3, these are the tools and the malware that are applied by a threat actor. And together, you can say DML1 up to 3, these provide the traces of attack execution. Again, especially DML1 and 2, that's the vapor trail of the fighting jet. And you have to see how you can quickly switch to higher DML levels in understanding what tools and malware have been applied by the threat actors, and then also going further up the model, DML 4, 5, 6, for understanding the tactics, techniques, and the procedures which make up the attack execution plan and the methods. So as we can see here, the precision is down this model because the indicators are very, very specific, but the robustness goes up this level. So the more you go up this level, the more robust you are. So if you're able to attribute this to some specific attacker who is relevant for your environment, then you really have achieved, I would say, a good amount of results, because once you know which attacker is attacking your environment, and if you have gathered enough intelligence and have prepared your organization through adequate cyber threat modeling, you should be able to really successfully defend against that threat actor. Now let's move on with the frameworks, and the primary goal here is, as I mentioned before, understanding the underlying models to our work. Yeah. So how are we going to address all of this? Yeah, the really large mountain of telemetry data that is going to be collected in our environment. How we're gonna really find our needle in the haystack by applying these methodologies and models. So starting off with the SAN 6-step incident response process, which I'm now comparing with the previous NIST model that I've introduced earlier. As you can see, the SAN 6-step incident response process is more granular, and that's why we're gonna stick on this one here. So it's differentiating here, especially here in different phases. So with preparation is meant the preparation of your organization, being prepared for defending against your relevant threat landscape. And this is where we are going to apply the first part of intel-driven threat hunting. So this is related to threat intelligence and threat modeling. And then if an incident occurs, if the SIEM generates an alarm, for example, then the next step in this process is the identification and scoping, which is today done by level 1 and level 2 incident responders for doing the initial triage. Once level 1 and level 2 incident responders have a suspicion that this is a true positive incident, they're going to escalate this to level 3, and level 3 from a skill set is very similar to threat hunters. So level 3 incident responders have the skill set to really understand attack chains, to understand all of these models, and really have this kind of deep visibility. They sometimes turn to threat hunters for support if that's really a larger incident and they need much more context. So threat hunting is a discipline that is helping incident responders here, and not necessarily only incident responders, because threat hunting is a proactive endeavor, meaning that in an ideal SOC organization where you have enough money and resources, you would be continuously and proactively hunting in your environment, trying to hunt for known and also for unknown threats. And once incident responders or threat hunters do find malicious activity in their environment, of course, something has to be done as a next step, which is the containment. And if that is really a larger incident, then of course there needs to be worked out a strategy for eradication, remediation, and recovery, which is then implemented in the environment. And also this strategy needs to consider the prevention of potential reinfections. So if any single foothold remains unseen and unaddressed during incident response, we have seen customers who have then really quickly they had to fight with reinfections. So this is something that is then part of a DFIR team. DFIR stands for Digital Forensics and Incident Response. A DFIR retainer is usually the way going forward if an organization is really breached, so that that DFIR retainer is helping the organization to get to a normal state. Yeah, so we said that for preparation, this is something that we need to address through intelligence, through the intelligence part and through the threat modeling part, in order to help SOC organizations improve their maturity level. And we are helping the identification and scoping part through threat hunting, through proactive threat hunting, which is a sophisticated analysis methodology. Now coming to the diamond model of intrusion analysis, which was published in 2013. This is actually more considered like a de facto standard in our environment. The main author is this Caltagirone. I don't know how this is pronounced correctly, but this guy is the main author and has really done a great job, because the diamond model of intrusion analysis is the underlying model for us, which defines our method and the model of our work. And this relates to the intelligence as well as the investigation part. So With investigation, I mean the hunting, I mean the incident response analysis. It doesn't matter in which discipline that is practiced. So this model covers both parts, and it's really nice how I can really recommend this write-up for everyone who is concerned about incident response, concerned about threat hunting. Really go through this document. It has, I think, 60 plus pages, and he's really bringing all necessary stuff together in that document. He's also describing very nicely that, yeah, prior to, let's say, or previously, let me say previously, the intrusion analysis has been more been considered like an art that was practiced by Norse, by people who are knowing, by professionals of this field. But he has really put great scientific rigor into this arena, helping us to really categorize things in the right way. Like, for example, the name diamond model is derived actually from this relationship. So there are four main features which actually make up, I would say, attack and defense elements. So this is the adversary itself, the one who's going to attack a victim. So the victim as a second feature. And then the adversary has some capabilities that he's going to leverage through his infrastructure, through his attacking infrastructure, in order to attack the victim. So this relationship actually comes in the form of this diamond, and this is where the name comes from. So the adversary feature is focusing on objects related to the threat actor, like threat actor identity, the target industry that he is known to be targeting, the target region that he's attacking, his motivations, his goals, his strategy, etc. And then his capabilities. These are the things like his C2 traffic, the tools and the malware that he is applying, the tactics, techniques, and procedures that he's applying in order to conduct his attacks, the exploits that he's using for addressing vulnerabilities, etc. So these are just a few examples. And then the infrastructure that he's leveraging in order to attack comes with some source IP addresses, some domain names, some URLs, etc. So on the victim side of things, we have many exposures, and I really want to emphasize on this term exposure, because this is a very important term. In the past, there was a very unbalanced focus on vulnerabilities in victim environments, and over time we have learned that addressing vulnerabilities by patching and patching and patching is not alone fruitful. This needs to go hand in hand with new, I would say, new emerging programs. Like, for example, there is a new program, Continuous Threat Exposure Management, which is leveraging new kind of approaches for improving maturity levels for SOC organizations. Yeah, we have emerging markets like attack surface management solutions. We have security validation or breach and attack simulation. So various, let's say, emerging markets coming up, coming up from the last couple of years, from where we are learning how we can really improve the maturity level. So exposures to threats can be technical and non-technical. Like, for example, if you have exposures through social engineering because you haven't trained your personnel in a proper way. So yeah, this is then an exposure through social engineering. Or if you have exposures through misconfigurations, or you have exposures through your supply chain. So exposures can be on people, on processes, and also on technology. So yeah, I'll go back. One more important thing to mention here. I have some tools here which I can leverage to write directly into the slide. So what is done in addition to these four features is that there is something laid on top of this model, which is able to also consider non-cyber influences on cyber. Can you see my writing here?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay, this works. That's excellent. So non-cyber influences on the cyberspace, this is also something that you need to consider when you are modeling your environment and your threats, because there are various kinds of non-cyber incidents that can take place which will have an effect on your cyber environment. Like, for example, if you look at geopolitical incidents, if there are some elections, and then the probability is high that an organization which is hosting election systems, that this organization is going to be attacked during elections, because we know that attackers are wanting to manipulate the elections. Yeah, and so there are many different kind of non-cyber influences that can be relevant for the cyber environment, and this is also something which is covered by the Diamond model, and should definitely be considered when creating the models. Okay, go back to my laser pointer. Yeah. All right. Activity threat is a very important graph. So what you actually do with the activity threat is you track your findings in your environment. So as I mentioned earlier, the Diamond model is focused on the intelligence and on the intrusion activity part. So on the intrusion activity part, the activity threat helps us in understanding events and event relationships. So chaining events together to an event chain, which was originally, if you go back to 2013 when the model was published, the MITRE ATT&CK framework was not that mature. So that's probably why this activity threat is here in the context of the cyber kill chain, which we know originally introduced by Martin Lockheed. But today you would rather create such an activity threat in the context of the cyber, on the MITRE ATT&CK kill chain, because that's more granular. But the concept is the same. If you find various events in your environment, you're going to chain these together in order to reproduce the intrusion activity. And originally in the cyber kill chain, it was really the strict order here, starting off with reconnaissance, weaponization, delivery, exploitation, installation, C2, etc., and then action on objectives. So this was the initial infection chain. And then action on objectives was all the post-compromise TTPs, which were then applied Yeah, it's so keeping an activity threat as a result when you're doing intrusion analysis, when you're doing hunting, when you're doing incident response, is very, very important. Linking events together is very important, and very often you also have to make assumptions. Like for example, you won't find evidence for everything, yeah, because sometimes the retention period is overdue, and data is just being dropped, or the attacker has erased some of his tracks. There can be many reasons to the fact that you lose evidence, but sometimes you identify an event where you have to make an assumption that another event must have had occurred, otherwise this was not possible. Yeah, and this is where you start also making assumptions. And over time, once you are working on your hunt engagement and you're able to create this kind of activity threat, you really know that this kind of activity is happening in your environment. There is also another very interesting thing in this model, which is the activity attack graph. So activity attack graph is a combination of the activity threat and the previous attack graph that you have worked out as part of cyber threat modeling. So the blue events, the blue diamonds here, these are derived from the attack graph, which is actually the potential. This is describing the potential that the attacker has and that the attacker has in order to attack you. But the black diamonds, they are describing your findings in your environment, and then you can actually link these together in order to get an overall understanding of, okay, the overall capability of the threat actor was this and that. In our environment, we have found only that, and now from this we can actually infer what else are the possibilities of the attacker to attack us, and because he has those capabilities, that's the reason why we are considering that. But at the same time, we also have to be very careful that this doesn't become a theoretic model which has no practical relevance, because in the meantime, there are so many attack vectors that can be really addressed by the threat actors that you would have a whole lot of potential attack scenarios where you would find out, okay, the attacker could attack us in this way and in that way and that way as well, but you have to prioritize because your resources are not unlimited. You have limited resources, so this is where prioritization comes into the play. You need to put additional elements into your threat modeling process in order to find out what are the most likely attacks that are going to be performed by the threat actors, and prioritize those with the highest priority, and then start operationalizing these and start hunting for these. But if you have more resources available, then you can also go for the lower priority ones, because finally, it's all about, risk is all about mitigation, and we know that time and space is all limited. What is doable? This is something that needs to. That is something that you need to find out on your own within the environment where you are operating. And we will learn about these techniques, how we're going to do prioritization, effective prioritization, what clues are important in order to prioritize them highly. Yeah. So going on with the frameworks. Now the MITRE framework is an excellent framework. Every of our customer has been applying this in his environment from years now. The big question actually is how you're going to apply this in your environment. And the MITRE framework on its own is not sufficient. That's why we have models like the diamond model. And we will also learn about other models. So the MITRE framework is a TTP-based behavioral threat model, which is on the tactical level. If we go back in our mind to the threat intelligence slide where we set tactical threat intelligence, yeah, we can really say. Let me just see. I think this is the slide here. Yeah. So we can say, yeah, MITRE is providing tactical threat intelligence. They're also providing operational and strategic threat intelligence, but they are not focused on the technical threat intel. Yeah, so a model which has aggregated all the different techniques and tactics and procedures which have been found in the wild, put them together and provided this matrix. So we have three kind of matrices, which is the enterprise matrix is the one that we are going to look at. There's also mobile and industrial control system matrix, but we're going to focus on the enterprise. Yeah, and I originally introduced that term phase-ordered kill chain. So within the diamond model, we actually saw this already, but I mentioned that because this model, the diamond model, was published in 2013, and MITRE was actually matured later. That's why probably the model. So the MITRE model was not part of the diamond model, but today we're gonna consider the activity threat here in the context of the MITRE kill chain. So in the MITRE terminology, these here are all tactics, but they're equivalent to phases. So that's why we are saying phase ordered. And this complete thing here, you can call it attack life cycle or kill chain, meaning the same thing. So if you are investigating on an intrusion activity, you're gonna try to identify events. You're gonna chain those together to this chain of events, which finally makes up on one of the sides the intelligence. So if you are developing this as part of your incident preparation and the cyber threat modeling process, then you're trying to understand your relevant threat scenarios, the threat-centric part. And if you are considering this as your activity threat, and you are step by step bringing into this your findings, your local findings, then you can really work with the same model in order to create your activity threat. So basically, you can say this can be your activity threat, and at the same time, it can also be your attack graph if it just depends on whether that's the threat modeling part or it's the intrusion analysis part. Strangely enough, my pointer is not. Okay, that's working. Yeah, going ahead with the Tiber EU framework. So Tiber EU consumes threat intelligence. Yeah, that's the first things that are done by the threat intelligence provider. So Tiber EU as a whole is divided into the two parts. So there is the threat intelligence provider part, and then there's also the red testing provider part. So the threat intelligence provider is first of all consuming threat intelligence, and then also consuming further stuff, like, for example, the digital footprint of an organization. Yeah, very importantly. And this is exactly what I mentioned earlier, that when you are going to prioritize your threat scenarios, you're gonna consider the digital footprint, because if you have for example, some weaknesses in your digital footprint, then it's very likely that those weaknesses are going to be exploited by the threat actors that you have identified. So this is a very important factor which needs to be considered when you're creating your models. There are many these kind of factors that are taken as input, and then you go through a modeling process, which basically so these first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the first 5 bullet points here, these are the input, and then you go ahead with the contextualization. So you start building out your cyber threat model. You are identify the relevant threat actors and understand their motivation and intent, and then map this to the business of the customer. So this is the way how you identify the relevant threat actors. So once you learn about their motivation and intent, this is when you understand or when you map this to your business, and then also determine their modus operandi, going through the different TTPs which they are applying in their, or which they have applied in their recent attack campaigns. This is how you then create the threat scenarios, which are the models taken as input to your preparation. So this is going back to this slide here. So you can say, okay, if you have considered a relevant threat actor with his threat scenarios, and you have gone through this modeling process for that specific threat scenario, you have prepared your organization, and then you go ahead with the additional ones in order to cover your complete relevant threat landscape, and then you are quite well prepared. But you need to make sure that you stay up to the mark, because those threat actors are constantly changing their tool set. They're further developing on the tool set. They're employing new TTPs. You can consider of a threat actor like an organization. They also have to be profitable. They also have to acquire new resources. If they are making good money, they are expanding. You know, it's actually just another business model, a destructive business model, but you can consider them in the same way as an organization. So when they are continuing with their tradecraft, we also have to update our threat models on a regular basis, and really quite frequently. Otherwise, we're not going to be ahead of them. Yeah. So our goal is actually to become ahead of the threat actors rather than being far behind. Yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, the Tiber EU then, as a second step, focuses on red testing, but these models can also be then taken as input for the defense. So very specifically, we are currently helping customers to infer SIEM use cases from the threat models. So that's a kind of side product, you can say, of the threat models. I mean, our main focus is intelligence-driven threat hunting, but if you are creating these models anyway, then you can infer from these models sophisticated SIEM use cases, detection use cases. Yeah, and then going ahead here with STIX. So STIX is the expression language that helps us in providing the machine code. We have developed an open source tool some time ago where we are leveraging STIX code. That's an open source prototype. I can share the link with you if you're interested in that later. It defines a specific schema of STIX, which needs to be provided and then taken as input, so that we can represent attack graphs from and also activity threats from STIX code. But first of all, let's go through this expression language. So STIX defines 18 STIX domain objects. So these are abbreviated SDO. So 18 in the most recent version, STIX 2.1. With those objects, you can actually express intrusion activity, you can express threat intelligence, you can express attack relationships, or better to say attack elements and then relationships. So we have, these are STIX domain objects, these are additional STIX domain objects, so in total we have 18, and then we have 2 relationship objects where you define the relationship between these objects. So STIX is open source, that's the great thing about it, and as a community endeavor, we are promoting these kind of open source projects, and we are building upon these open source projects. So we are actually leveraging STIX for representing the diamond model, because the diamond model itself doesn't define the expression language itself. So we are leveraging STIX in order to define these objects. So like, for example, we have the threat actor object, we have a campaign object for defining the adversary element, we have malware, tool, attack pattern elements or objects for defining the capabilities. Then we also have objects here for the victim and for the infrastructure. Yeah, so a total of 18 STIX domain objects, and then we also have a lot of cyber observable objects. These are abbreviated SCO. So with cyber observable objects, we are actually, defining procedures. So the domain objects are more high level, and the SCOs, they are more specific, required for defining the procedures. And then we have the relationship objects in order to define relationships like object A is targeting object B. Yeah, attack pattern is targeting some vulnerability, or attack pattern is targeting some identity. Meaning, so with identity, we mean some victim, for example. So different kind of relationships, but it's not limited to these relationships. So we can actually specify custom STIX code we can define 6 extensions. So the language has options for defining the extensions, so that you can really be very flexible here. So this is an example of our open source tool, which we are going to demonstrate in some later session. But we are differentiating between a main graph and subgraphs. So the main graph, that is the phase-ordered kill chain of some attack scenario, of some threat-centric attack scenario. It gives us here the attack chain, yeah, the chain of events, which are this is now leveraged for threat modeling. Yeah, this is not the activity threat, but we can also leverage the same tool as an activity threat. And then for every technique, so these are all the different techniques in the context of the of the MITRE ATT&CK framework. And if we click on some of these techniques here, then a subgraph opens up and we can see the procedure of that subgraph, which is expressed with the SCO objects, but not necessarily limited to the SCO objects. We also have some SDO objects here. It depends on what we are actually describing here. And this is quite small now, but for representing the diamond model, we have actually defined some areas here. So the highest area, this is the adversary area. Then comes the capability area. Sorry. Then comes the infrastructure area, and then we have the victim area. And since that is a prototype, we need to further improve this. But in the victim here, we actually need to work with subgraphs in order to represent the attack trees, to represent the asset-centric models. Yeah, and then very importantly, juxtaposing attack graphs to attack trees in order to create complete threat scenarios. Yeah, like for example, FIN12 is a well-known threat actor, and by the way, these terms here, they are coined by threat intelligence providers, and they're coined differently. So FIN12 with threat intelligence provider A doesn't necessarily mean FIN12 with provider B. So FIN12, for example, is a term which is coined by Mandiant, and the synonym of CrowdStrike, for example, is Wizard Spider. Yeah, and then other threat intelligence providers have coined the other names. In the open source community, you will whenever you are looking to some specific threat scenario, you will see the names, the synonyms defined there mostly. So if you are working with a MISP or some other open source tools. Now, for example, threat actor FIN12, that is a ransomware actor, acquires initial access derived from Emotet operators. So FIN12 is very much known to acquire previous initial infections from other, let's say, related threat actors like Emotet operators. They are not operating the initial access by themselves. Yeah, they are acquiring this in underground forums or markets, and then they deploy REAC by attacking Crown Jewel. I've read it to the Open Safe one now because that was our example here. But yeah, they're attacking our Crown Jewel ABC by exploiting vulnerability XYZ. Yeah, so this is a complete attack scenario. Where you would, from a threat modeling point of view, you would be able to say, okay, we are now, through defining these kind of attack scenarios, we are well prepared for defending against attacks. And through this, you should be good enough to identify intrusion activity coming from these threat scenarios. So if you have prepared your defense systems and your defense processes adequately, then whenever attack activity in the context of this scenario is taking place, you should be able to detect it. But through different predictive measures, we will be going beyond this, of course, because we cannot limit ourselves to this only. Yeah, bringing this all together, this is provided by a very nice write-up. The name of the write-up, I've put this here in the headline, is called Intelligence Preparation of the Cyber Environment. That's a write-up you can Google for this, provided by Rob Dartnell. He's Director of Cyber Intelligence, doing some good stuff for the community. He's also very tightly working together with the CREST organization. So CREST is an organization, I've also put this into here. I'm referring to a write-up which is called What is Cyber Threat Intelligence and How is it Used? I can recommend this write-up to you if you want to get your head around threat intelligence. So this intelligence cycle, these four phases of the intelligence cycle are derived from that CREST model. So Rob Dartnell is also working very tightly with CREST, and in this write-up here, Intelligence Preparation of the Cyber Environment, he's really emphasizing on the various parameters that should be taken as input in order to create the threat models, and then really preparing yourself in the proper way against these against today's threat actors, sophisticated threat actors. So this is very much you can say in line with what we have seen in the Tiber EU framework. So you gather business parameters, you gather threat-centric actor parameters. So who are the relevant threat actors, the relevant threat scenarios for our environment. You gather this first of all in a kind of intelligence collection plan. You get an understanding of your operational environment. So that term that I originally stressed on. So operational environment is your complete infrastructure, internal and external infrastructure that can be attacked. So you determine that as well, and then you also identify environmental effects. So these are the non-cyber influences, which are also introduced through the Diamond model. The geopolitical, the non-cyber kind of events that have an effect on your cyber environment, on your operational environment. So you gather them here as well, which environmental effects are relevant to our environment. And then, very importantly, your digital footprint. And with your digital footprint, we really mean your complete digital footprint, whether that's social media, that's your internet-facing infrastructure, or any kind of other thing related to that part. So when we consider all of these parameters, then we really have all the input which then is taken into the intelligence cycle for planning and direction. So the better this input, the better our planning and direction can be. And then we're going to start with collecting the relevant data, whether these are already, let's say, threat reports, finished threat reports, or whether that's raw data that we are taking from open source intelligence. That doesn't make a difference. So we need to have our our processes in place in how we want to collect the data, and then we're going to process and analyze the data. And this is the part where we're also creating the threat models, where we are developing the threat models, and then we are going to disseminate this into our defense ecosystem. So taking this into preparation here, this is if we have really done this homework correctly, then we are well prepared for the for our relevant threat landscape. Yeah, I think we are spot on with the time. Thank you very much for attending this class. I hope it was interesting enough for you to join the next sessions.